What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome back to Marvel Future Revolution. Let's jump right in. So I wasn't going to do this because I watched the stream and I thought it was a bunch of, I don't know. Yeah, it was a bunch of fluff. I felt like it was ill-timed, especially given, the dev note. I've been pretty adamant about giving my stance on Netmarble and their methodology in terms of developing games across the space, because when you have a company or a team or an organization, there's a culture, and that culture starts at the top and it literally funnels its way down. So like, I could sit here and blame developers for the way content is generated in a game, or I could just look at the culture of the company on a whole. So that's why I always try to give you my perspective on the game from a culture perspective, meaning I look at the way Marvel Future Fight has handled other titles inside of its catalog, like Lineage, 7 Deadly Sins, Marvel Future Fight, King of Champions, or whatever. That basically, there's a culture within those games and those game spaces, and being able to pick up on that will give you an idea of what's to come, because as far as I can tell, for the years that I've been alongside of Netmarble playing some of their games, the culture has not changed. That's why I always make the joke, what Netmarble giveth in one hand, they taketh away in the other. That's why I said to you that, hey, they're going to give you something that they already planned to give you because it was already planned, but they're going to listen to you bitch and complain about it, and then they'll give you what they really intended to give. So they'll push the goalposts really far away, so that way you're like whining about the goalpost being so far, but they never really intended the goalpost to be there in the first place, and then they'll bring it in 50 yards. So anyways, let's jump into this, and then I'll talk to you guys about some of the stuff that I specifically had inside here. Number one, they talked about the Content Creator Club.
Several invitations sent out to the community, and 7 of you that we have accepted. Please look out for them, and they have generated tons of great conversation surrounding the state of the game. Now,
so I'm gonna jump into this real quick, because Darth Microtransaction, DM Marvel Future Revolution, he already did a video on this a while back about how he was offered content creator status and stuff like that. This is something that's played out inside Marvel Future Fight, and they've kind of backed off the way the Content Creator Club worked. But Netmarble has always done this with content creation, where they're like willing to, basically give rewards for people who are generating content. That happens inside the YouTube and social influencing space, no matter how you see it. So this is not something new, but obviously the efforts have started, and there are obviously going to be people who are jumping on board. Darth Microtransaction did a far better video than I can. I didn't get any offer to be a content creator. My channel was clearly not big enough for that. But he gave his opinion on why he did not want to be a content creator, and I actually agreed with him. I thought he did a great job in explaining reasons why you would be a content creator versus reasons why you shouldn't be a content creator. And it always matters in your situation. So, I'm not going to shame anybody who chose to be a content creator. The bad part is that usually once you become a content creator in some shape, form, or way, people typically generally have this feeling about being a content creator, and therefore biases start to leak in a little bit. Like when Cynic Alex decided that he no longer really wanted to be a content creator for Marvel Future Fight, and he left. He didn't stop creating content. He still kept creating content for it, but he was just not cool with being on board after the way the Content Creator Club was being handled. So look for videos from the two of them, and it gives you a good perspective about it. But anyways, so he introduces Alice Pak, I think her name is. I couldn't remember what her last name was.
To kind of kick this first episode of Chilling with Danny. So without further ado, let me introduce Alice Pak.
So this is Alice Pak. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of divisive comments about Alice Pak. I think Darth Microtransaction pointed it out in one of his videos, and I pointed it was one of my main reasons that I was not going to do a video, because I didn't want to say anything negative about this individual. I personally did not think that this person came across well inside of this Chillin' with Danny. I don't really know how to frame it, and I don't want to make any negative things. I'll give some positive feedback. Is that she is the what seems like the lead project manager for that's working with Marvel Games in order to handle the feedback collection and is responsible for handling the release scheduling of content. If you're not aware, content isn't generated on this game in a month-to-month basis. That's not how it works. It's not handled like that inside Marvel Future Fight. It's not handled like that inside King of Fighters. Is not handled like that in Seven Deadly Sins. They've been adamant before about letting people know that content development happens in cycles, almost in 3 to 4 months increments. So they already know what's on the release schedule way prior to it actually being released. That's just a truth of the matter, right? Speaking of that, I saw my boy BY Destroyer Rex in the comments section legitimately speaking about the Eternals and that Darth microtransaction had made a leak about the Eternals possibly being released in the game. I don't believe that we will have Eternals released in this game in November. November is when the movie's slated to come out. I cannot fathom a situation where we would get that release. But even if we did, here goes the problem with that. It is nice to get hyped about characters, guys, but in a game where you have to invest so much into a singular character, how hype can you get? Because the preparation and lead time that you would need in order to be ready for a new character release, so that way that character is going to be able to perform in the content that you are currently performing in on day 1 or day 7 of that release, is literally months, especially if you're a free-to-play player. If you're a whale, then you probably are already on standby with everything that you could just throw at it because you've got dollar values. So guys, don't get so enamored and so thrown in about possible leaks of new characters that's coming to the game. Danny Koo actually mentions inside here that the next character to be released is going to be Magic, and we're literally sitting in here at October 19th. We're almost 3/4 of the way through the month, and I just don't for the life of me see that we're going to have that character those characters released in time. I think there will be some movie tie-in stuff that will be done, like events and stuff like that, for the release of the movie. I think that's what we're seeing inside those promos that are overseas, is that there's going to be probably something in the game to promote that movie release, because clearly after Spider-Man was released, the promo value of the movie went down significantly. People basically lost interest in the fact that the movie was coming out. They would have did far better to not release anything about Spider-Man No Way Home before the release of that movie. I'm still excited about the Eternals. They're some of my favorite characters, so I would love to see them inside the game. I would fucking love to see them inside the game. Playing as Icarus or Cersei, that would be amazing. But I know we're gonna get those characters inside Marvel Future Fight. So if you're a big Eternals fan, go log into Marvel Future Fight, download that game. Icarus and Cersei are already in the game, and I guarantee you that Marvel Future Fight will have characters for the Eternals released when that movie comes out. There's already been a long-standing habit with the game where movie releases and comic stuff fall with inside the game. More movie releases than anything inside Marvel Future Fight. Danny actually addresses this later on inside the conversation, where he's at about the 37-minute mark, I think it was. I'm trying to give you guys timestamps so that way you can just jump to these things. Oh no, it was like the 1 minute and 2 minute mark of the video right about here. Danny actually jumps in and he actually tells people that we're going to get, characters and stuff like that from the comics, from the movies, and from the cinematic universe. So you can see that here.
It's Warbeast. That's
But yeah, I love these stories.
Okay, so we have time for one more question, Tech Guy. Going to be comic based. That's always going to be inspired by the Marvel comics or the cinematic universe or original creation by the Marvel team here.
Yeah.
It's gonna look.
So there you guys have it. Basically, that's gonna be in here. I have told you guys this, and I cannot stress this enough. This game is going to probably follow the same pattern as Marvel Future Fight. If you think this game is going away, it's not. The game is going to be here. If you keep having videos about whether the game is dying, it's not. It's going to be here. And they're going to end up finding a groove. And if you even read the comment section of these videos, you can already see that there's a player base that is already enthused about it, even if they're free to play. They're just happy to be having something that they could play. Because I think a lot of people forget that when you're in the West, you might have computers, you might have PlayStation 5s and everything else like this. There's some people that only have phones to play on, so that's what they're playing on, and that might be happening in other places, right? So people are excited to be able to play a game of this value, of this quality on their phones. It's going to be there, and they're going to release comic cinematic OG characters. Next thing I wanted to jump into was at the 16-minute mark of the video. I found this was part of the piece that just like kind of hurt my soul listening to Alice talk about. It was developer play versus player play, and it kind of gives you an idea of how unprepared they were for the state of the game and where it was gonna go so quickly.
Or Red Skull, just to like test out the feature, but seeing people that are not from the development team go after these most wanted targets and just like absolutely obliterating them within seconds, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually gonna cry, because there are actual people playing this game and it's not taking us 10 minutes to take down Red Skull. It's taking like 2 seconds to take down Red Skull. It was like one of those just very like emotional moments.
So this brought up a interesting point, because I told you guys when this Epic Invasion event was released, for instance, that they were not prepared realistically that players' power levels were going to be at these levels. I just don't believe it. I don't believe that they were prepared for this at all. As a matter of fact, there's a point inside the video as well at about the 57 mark inside the video right here, where they literally talk about how surprised they are that players have literally maxed all 8 characters at 100, and that some people actually have their characters maxed at 110.
Their squad or the server name revealed, but they said I got 100 for all 8 characters. Okay, Mr. or Miss Tryhard, that's a lot of hours into playing. God dang. Go
did you get
all 8 characters.
What about level 110 for all 8 characters?
So you can see here that they have, this is disappointing to me, because it's not really disappointing, but I'm using the word disappointing because I can't find another word. It's disappointing to me because you can see here that they don't really have an understanding of the game that they're actually producing and developing, meaning that they don't really see what we see. But I kind of brought this into point with you guys when I talked about like Marvel Future Fight and 7 Deadly Sins, where characters would be released and the developers would give you notes on how they thought the character should be played, but then when we got it in the hands as players, we're like, no, what the fuck was that? That doesn't really compute. This is how you're actually playing the characters games. It used to be a time when you'd be like, okay, who are the player testers? Who are the player quality assurance testers? It's a different thing to be a developer and to play something that you're developing versus it to be somebody who's a player, a gamer, doing testing for you. And I wonder if they have gaming testers for them. At one point inside Marvel Future Fight, you felt like that's what they had, and that's what they should have been using the Content Creation Club for, giving us the pre-release. Like if you go and this is a MMO thing too, right? So like for instance, when Black Desert Online first got released, there was a alpha test, right? And in most games that get released in the PC sphere, you'll literally have people who are basically game testers for the game. They sign NDAs. I've done this for multiple games, and that's how they get their game testing done. Meaning that the game is released in an alpha state for players to play. Like normally you're probably, for anybody who hasn't participated, you're probably used to seeing a game when it's in like beta and then it's like ready for release and within 3 to 4 months. But usually there's like players that have helped out in some kind of game testing stage way back in alpha or delta, you know, so when the game is like literally nuts and bolts still, and they're helping test these things out so that way the developers can get a sense of where the game's going. I did that for BDO, I did it for Magic Legends, a few of those games, and I do mean prior to beta. I mean like alpha. If you participated in a beta test, it's not the same. Trust me, it's not the same. And here, it doesn't seem like they have that inside the game. Like if you were to currently go and play Black Desert Online right now, they are currently in the process of reworking characters, meaning they are rebuilding characters and retooling them. They use their Arena of Arsha event, which is a tournament cycle, in order to kind of get some idea of where characters were. But then they have a testing server that players can log into and sign in on, create characters, and they can experience the test. So that way they're game testing the characters. I thought that it would have been a benefit, because they kind of did this somewhat in Marvel Future Fight, but they haven't done this obviously yet inside Marvel Future Revolution. I expect them, you know, I hope that they look at this later on, that use the content creators in order to do that. You know, sign NDA to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to accept that I get to play on this test server that you guys have, and I'll hold an account on the test server and I'll hold an account on the public facing sphere. I don't show you anything on a test server, but this will give them a better idea of what's going to actually happen when it's released, because a developer seeing something is completely different than a gamer seeing something. It's two different spheres. And on the PC side for MMOs, they have figured this shit out already. If you play MMOs, you know this. Like, I'm talking about ArcAge, I'm talking about Black Desert Online, I'm talking about Guild Wars. I have been on the alpha testing teams for so many of these things in order to game test something to see what the game looks like prior to even launching for beta. And it like helps out the developers in such a great way, because it gives them a better idea of what's to actually come. You know, and it doesn't really take much to facilitate that, because you give meager rewards and stuff like that, and it's like, yay, you know, you're a founding member, you're a content creator, cool, good to go, you know, and players feel enthused about doing it for you. It's not like you're paying them for this thing. But anyways, so I digress. Next up that they were talking about was character balancing, and they were talking about this at the 18-minute mark of the video. And it was interesting to me, them having this conversation about character balancing, because I brought this up. So I brought...
It's a tricky dance we're doing here, because if we balance Captain America, then Black Widow gets nerfed, and then like Spider-Man gets nerfed, and then if we buff Iron Man, then you know, other characters, other heroes get affected. So
you can understand that they understand there's a problem with character imbalancing. The question is, why were the characters so imbalanced in the first place? Meaning, were they not ready for release? And this goes back to the game testing, right? And they understand as well. She talks about it here at the 30-minute mark of the video as well, about game modes being unbalanced, because inside the chat, people are literally talking about the game modes, especially like Dimension Duels and so forth like that.
Yeah, we made sure the story is fun and exciting. Shout out to, you know, Mark. Mark is a writer for our game, and he's worked on Future Fight as well. He's amazing. But Marvel Future Revolution is one of a kind. Oh, thank you. Sure, there are some game modes which are unbalanced.
Yes, Alice, please balance the game, please. Thanks.
I am working on it.
So you can understand that, like, the one thing that came out from the dev note that they recently released, and this is the reason why I felt like it wasn't aligned. They acknowledged inside the dev notes that COVID, obviously, the big C, excuse me, I shouldn't have said that. That the big C obviously affected game development, and unfortunately a lot of the things seem like they were developed within a vacuum, meaning that you had a team that was working on this and a team that was working on that, and they didn't really, you know, have a lot of time to cross pollinate ideas and things like that. And so they recognize that characters are imbalanced and game modes are imbalanced, and when you have a basic foundation where the game modes are imbalanced, of course the characters are going to feel imbalanced, because they're the pieces that you're adding into those game modes, and they're unbalanced to begin with. So it's really weird about that stuff, right? So I feel like that's one of those things that, you know, it's hit or miss. You're basically going to have to wait for them to find a rhythm there with balancing those things. And they're not going to want to just layer on things, because say if I add another character, like a whole Eternals update where I add another 5 characters into that mixing pool, now I literally spin myself out of control, because now I'm now trying to, and just instead of balance for 8 characters, I'm trying to balance for 10 characters. And I'm trying to work on all these balancings to get them just right, so that way the foundation is working. So it's going to take time, and I appreciate that they said that. The last thing that I want to get onto is 2 things that I think are going to tick people off. I know that, I know that it pissed off Darth Microtransaction, or, you know, not necessarily pissed him off, but, you know, is one of the reasons why I got comments on my thing about his video. And it was her comments at the 46-minute mark, I think it was, where she talked about the tips on the current invasion mode.
Just be good. Just be better.
This was literally the tips on playing.
Let's get good.
That's how you get a higher score.
So higher score,
and
also
then
means like if you
in
finish
between
faster,
here and
right?
there,
And
she
also with,
she literally addresses they're talking about gacha rates, and she literally has to go back and address the very poor gacha rates inside the game. And she makes a faux pas, and she catches herself later, and she comments on those and says that she's just joking. But she says that they have done a lot of thought into making sure that the draw rates are fair. And a lot of players literally jumped in the comment section and piled in on this. And the problem is that this comes to another issue. I've said this a number of times, guys. This is a mode that is literally torn from 7 Deadly Sins, and typically with inside that mode, when that mode got released, because it's not going to be something that's going to be here every 2 weeks, there's going to be a rotation. That's not what's going to happen. It's literally going to be like, it's here for 2 weeks, we miss it out on a month, and then it comes back the month after that. If you've played 7 Deadly Sins, then you've seen it. It is an event, okay? Because it's not going to happen all the time. Because to happen all the time, they would literally be purse stringing you every day and trying to fleece you for this stuff. But it will happen where this Mad Titan will probably rotate back again, but you won't be able to use the same Titan seals that you had from the previous time. So when you talk about those things, she says get good. But you can't get good if you don't know what the qualifiers are. Like, for instance, a lot of players didn't know that the speed of the event was what was needed in order to increase the score. But a lot of players also don't understand the modifiers as well in the game. Like, did you know that you could modify your score by escaping more? Like, most people don't even know the difference still between dodging and escaping. They don't understand that timing when you actually escape an attack, that will give you an increased score modifier. Like, if you go into the invasion mode and Thanos is attacking you, right, or Ares starts their attack on you, and instead of dodging or using your dodge skill to get out the way of the attack, that you stay close to them and escape the attack, meaning that you execute a proper timing, that will give you another modifier, like almost 140,000 points worth of modifier. So those modifiers and those things like that are not spelled out. Why are they not spelled out? They should be spelled out so players know I should be trying to do these things more. I should be, trying to hit these marks with inside of it. Like, if you played it in 7 Deadly Sins, you knew that it was like, I got to get this many heals off, and I got to finish it off in this many rounds, so that way I get the highest score. Well, they haven't done that here. The only thing they spelled out in the tooltip is complete it the fastest. That's it. So you're running for there, right? The second thing that she talks about, right, was the draw rates and the gotchas. This is not a laughing matter in this game, where players are literally trying to tell them that this is not a free-to-play game. It's not free-to-play friendly at all. It's one of those things that they need to rein in, because it's really run amok. It's really bad. Talking about the costumes that are in the shop but not available to you anywhere else because they're beautiful, these OG creations, which the Rise of the East, the steampunk and all of these other costumes are. They're OG creations. If you notice, the OG creations that they're doing are in the cash shop, and that's what you're paying for. My belief is because they're going to make the most amount of money on those, because those don't have to be licensed. That's my belief, but I don't know that that's true, so I don't want to speak too much on that. But overall, I just felt like the timing of the release of this was poor. I didn't think that that this was a good time to be chilling with Danny Koo when the community is literally having videos on a week-to-week basis from content creators and from players just leaving in droves and saying, is the state of the game dead? So it's like one of those weird pieces where you're like, does this fit right now within the current narrative? And it doesn't. And I think that, you get a person like Alice in this video, and she comes across so very throwaway-ish, so nonchalant about it, and it doesn't appear well. Like her, I don't want to say her personality, but the way she presents it in this video, she's a lovely girl. Excuse me, I don't know what her pronouns are. She's a lovely person. I don't know, but I don't think that she came across endearing to the community, like that she really had their values in mind as they were trying to play this game and ask questions in the comments section. And I felt like that was bad. Like, Danny Koo typically comes across as very aloof and kind of like, happy-go-lucky, or just very nonchalant inside his nature and his demeanor. So he didn't really react the way she reacted, or overreact the way she overreacted, or let loose some stuff. But that's my take on it, guys. I don't really have more to say on it than that, other than the fact that I just did not think that this video, I thought this chilling with Danny Koo session was ill-advised. I do appreciate, however, that they are trying to take an initiative in order to engage the community, because for Netmarble in general, this has been something that has always been severely lacking with them, their engagement with the community. And they seem like they are maybe making a culture change, because let's bring it back to the beginning. They're maybe trying to make a culture change, because if you notice, we've had pretty much some kind of community engagement since the release of this game with them almost every week, whether it's live, streams with which I didn't believe was live, with CM Kim and Agent M, but they've tried to be engaging in the community. And the last thing we want to do as a community, especially if you're still invested in this game, is to throw them off. Like, I was happy. I was watching the video, and I saw Kraken Null was even in the comment section, even though he said that he was done playing the game. He was there, and then I saw him in the game the next day. So that made me happy to see players, because of the engagement, literally drawn back to the game for whatever reasons that they have individually. So that was nice to see. But obviously there should have been a better message that came across from this video, from this event, and I think it would have helped more to address issues more than it would have been to hide away from issues. Because at one point there was questions about crafting and things like that, and Danny, that was at the 37-minute mark of the video, and I thought this was another moment where Alice didn't come across well in addressing one of the community members, and people were asking about crafting, and Danny was like, we're not going to address those issues, just submit your things or whatever. We don't have any idea of what's actually being viewed and filtered to the developer. So this would have been a perfect opportunity to be like, okay, well, we're viewing these and we've seen your suggestions about these things. We're not going to speak on what we're specifically going to do for those things, but we have heard your feedback on these specific issues with crafting, with drop rates, with draw rates, and we're trying to address them internally. You could have literally gave some kind of comment section like that to abate people's fears, but that wasn't done, and everything came across from Alice's perspective, in my opinion, so very standoffish, or not standoffish, but throwaway-ish, as if those like, whatever, get good, like, too bad, get money, like our draw rates are fair, but get more money, basically. And it just didn't come across well. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This was my take on the Chillin' with Danny Koo session. I hope that my video grows up so that way I do gain their eyes, and that they will ask questions, and that our community will be place where they could, you know, seek resources to say, hey, look, this is what's being discussed in these comment sections over here. It's pretty important, but we'll see what happens. I'm enjoying making content for the game, and I'm still enjoying playing the game. I'm still knuckles deep inside the invasion mode, and we'll see what happens, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember, like and subscribe, and until next time, peace.